Good morning. Good morning. How we doing, everyone? It is the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast, and I am your host, Richie. Going live and in full effect on a very interesting Week 5 in the NFL. It is my Week 5 NFL recap. I'm going to give my takeaways for everything that we saw in the league over the course of Sunday and Monday. And I feel that a couple of these teams are starting to separate themselves from the rest of the pack. And I think other teams are potentially frustrating some as to where do they stand? Are they elite? Are they pretending? And we're going to try to sort some of that out today. Massive game that was propped and prepped and promoted for the NFL between two of the most iconic franchises, talking about the San Francisco 49ers and the Dallas Cowboys. And I must admit, it was not what it was cracked up to be or what I expected, as the San Francisco 49ers just pummeled the Cowboys. You know, when you go back to the previous two playoff games, while the 49ers were indeed the better team both days, the Cowboys stayed in it. This was not what we saw this particular week, and I want to hit on it because it is the biggest game that was played this past week. And I want to ask you guys, the viewers, what does Dak lack? Can the Cowboys ever win it all with number 4 at the helm? 49ers are literally looking like every bit of the class of the NFL. And quarterback Brock Purdy remains undefeated in games he's completed. When I say games he's completed, the one loss on his resume was last year's NFC Championship game at Lincoln Financial, where he was injured. You do get the L if you start the game and your team loses. But Mr. Purdy has not lost a game when he's actually finished a game. And that is an incredibly prolific stat when you are Mr. Irrelevant taken so late in the draft. It is truly remarkable. Speaks volumes on how far the kid has come. I'm going to start with Dak Prescott. What's up, Adam? Happy birthday. Big shout out to my big brother, Adam Acevedo. Today is his birthday. And we had a nice little talk, giving me some ideas for the show. Thanks for hanging with me, Adam. Thanks for hanging with me today. What does Dak lack? I'm going to start there. It's not always the easiest thing to identify. Personally, I think in this particular game and in failures of the past, I think Dak Prescott forces the ball too much when things aren't going completely right. I think this team misses Ezekiel Elliott. I'm going to say it. I understand that they do have more than enough weapons on offense, but I don't think a person that picks up blitz packages at the level of an Ezekiel Elliott is somebody that you want to lose on your team. I believe that emotionally losing Trevon Diggs for the season is directly correlated with the Cowboys losing 2 of their last 3 football games. I do believe that to be true as well. And sometimes it's not so much that there's a lot wrong with the Cowboys. There's a lot right with the 49ers. You know, the 49ers have answers at every position on the field. And I believe that Dallas got a taste of that. And a lot of other NFL teams are going to get a taste of that. I've said it on a previous show. I'll say it again. I believe the Dallas Cowboys, if they want to keep pace with the Philadelphia Eagles, the Detroit Lions, and the San Francisco 49ers, they have to trade for a legitimate corner to pair opposite of Stephon Gilmore, because you can't just go about things when you're trying to pursue a championship without a top 3 corner in the league, that being Trevon Diggs. But Dak Prescott, I don't know if it's a mental thing at this point. I don't know if it's the message just isn't as clear as it once was. But I believe that Dak Prescott is putting a little too much on himself and just forcing things. He's a very intelligent quarterback. He has proven over the years that he does own this division in a wins-loss metric. But Dak Prescott is just making too many mistakes. He's not reading things. And, you know, you got to give credit where it's due. You know, the 49er defense does make that happen to a lot of good quarterbacks. But right now, when I think about the San Francisco 49ers, you know, you have the every down ultimate back in Christian McCaffrey, the fantastic duo of Ayuk and Debo. depth galore on both the offensive and defensive sides of the ball, and a play caller like Kyle Shanahan that just keeps the train moving. And even if they're missing a player or two, which they have dealt with over the years, they just continue to move along and perform at a high level. It's only week 6 coming up now, but right now, as far as I'm concerned, I definitely got my NFC champion pick right. Assuming the 49ers can stay healthy enough, they are the best team in the NFC. I certainly have not been right about my AFC pick, because my AFC pick was the New York Jets. But ultimate statement game on so many levels. And I kind of get the vibe of a pure disdain and hatred between these two organizations that I witnessed as a young guy in the 90s, when I saw this essentially being the unofficial Super Bowl for 4 consecutive seasons. Super talented, super eccentric tight end George Kittle of the 49ers, raising up his jersey and showing his undershirt, fuck Dallas. I think it speaks volumes about the competitive nature. I don't think it's an immaturity thing. I don't think it's a thing that you're trying to be like toxic or any of that. I think it's legitimately a competitive nature thing. And the fact that you even have a shirt printed like that and you're wearing it underneath shows the importance of what those rivals mean. Dallas Cowboys have to get back to the drawing board, because I will say this. I think quarterback Dak Prescott is at a crossroads in his career, as the organization is as well, where they legitimately have to figure out if he is the man that can take them to the next level. They did trade for quarterback Trey Lance, who was a former 49er. The poor kid has always been injured. He hasn't really picked up their playbook. That was part of the motivation of trading him. And, of course, the ascension of Brock Purdy made that easy to do. But do I think they have the answer in the building? No, I don't believe so. But with a very deep and talented quarterback class coming out of college, I tend to believe that Dak Prescott's days as the Dallas Cowboys starter could potentially be numbered. I still think that he is the best option they have right now. But when you look at the many talented teams they've had over the course of 8-9 years, even going back to the Romo era that transcended into the Dak era, and not getting past round 2, being America's team, always under the microscope, they are to football what the Yankees are to baseball. No matter what the Cowboys are doing, similar to the Lakers on the hardwood, they are always going to get the headlines. And, Jerry Jones, similar to an owner like the late, great George Steinbrenner, demands excellence, sometimes even when it's unreasonable. But it's not easy for the Dallas Cowboys right now. And while they are 3-2 and still very much in position to be a playoff team, as a Yankee fan crossing it over, I think I could speak to the pain of Cowboys fans just getting annoyed and tired that they are good, but they keep feeling like maybe they're just not good enough. And when you talk about an organization that has a lineage of players like Roger Staubach, players like Troy Aikman, those 2 quarterbacks combining for 5 championships that this franchise has won, having the ridiculously amazing mark of playoff appearances and NFC East titles, they expect more in Big D, and I totally understand it. Stay tuned. As my New York Giants go, speaking of expectations and now lack thereof, boys and girls, this offense is broken. I want to talk about DJ's pain in the neck. And we as Giant fans are miserable, and we're just trying to assess this wreckage. Coming off of a very encouraging playoff victory, the first since Super Bowl 46, the New York Giants have been completely lost on offense. We have 5 turnstiles for an offensive line, injuries galore, and a defense that last year didn't have the talent but was definitely well coached. Looks like they too have regressed, where they're missing tackles, where they're not making appropriate reads in zone versus man schemes. It's just been a lot of frustration where the good teams are disciplined, and right now the New York Giants are the furthest thing from a good team. It is very frustrating. I will say this. Watching the game on the tube this past Sunday in Miami, I feel that Kayvon Thibodeau, on a positive, had a nice breakout game. I know that he's been under a lot of scrutiny because of his very large personality. And when you play in the Big Apple, that comes with the territory. but I do believe that he was winning at the point of attack and just putting himself in position to make plays. I don't think it was all bad. I think we have to take into consideration how good this Miami Dolphins team is, how easy the Giants' schedule was last year compared to this year as well. And, it goes without saying that when you don't have a healthy Saquon Barkley in your lineup, it's going to obliterate your potential. Right now the Giants don't have a number one wide receiver. They have a lot of number twos and number threes. I do think that they could use the talent and the speed that they have in this offense a lot better than they have. But in order for any of this shit to work, you have to keep Daniel Jones or Tyrod Taylor, whoever's going to be back there, upright. And while I don't absolve Daniel Jones from some of his poor decision-making and some of his issues in general, he's in year 5, and I expect more out of him at this point, regardless of what's going on around him. I get the fear, and I'm going to quote my man Quinton Moore on this, that he's getting shell-shocked on the level of a David Carr, the inaugural quarterback for the Houston Texans. It appears that he is at that stage of his football journey where he is literally getting shell-shocked, and it's an unenviable position to be in right now because he is constantly getting hit. I believe he's at 28 times sacked already. And, there is a lot of chatter that maybe this is the end of the Daniel Jones era. This is the second time injuring his neck. That's also something to be a little concerned about because he did have a neck injury in 21, which shut down his season. Head coach Brian Daboll feels that this is not as bad as what happened before, but it's still cause for concern. My man Gary Teeter, super giant fan. I've been to Jacksonville with him as recently as last year. We could have very well won that game yesterday, 2 days ago. I know what he means. If we could score in the red zone, bottom line. Gary, I do share your sentiment, and this speaks volumes on how broken this offense is. It's hard to score right now. And like I said, it goes back to the damage on the offensive line. It goes back to DJ getting shell-shocked. It's not just one particular thing that's wrong with this football team. It's a discipline thing. It's an awareness thing. It's a coaching thing. Because one thing I hate to admit, but I have no choice to, is that right now, the New York Football Giants have been outcoached pretty much every quarter with the exception of the 2 in Arizona in week 2. Talking about quarter 3, quarter 4, week 2 Arizona. And it's a growing pain for a young coach in a Brian Daboll. I do think there's a disconnect potentially between the quarterback and the head coach. One thing I do know is nobody wants to continue to take punishment. And I believe that in Daniel Jones's case, he is very frustrated. And why wouldn't he be? You ask any Giant player in that locker room how hard this young man works, and they're all going to tell you that he's the first one in and the last one out. And it's got to be frustrating when that doesn't result in winning. And then when you take a very demanding fan base, fans like you and I and many others, and the unreasonable expectations that come with being a pro athlete in the greatest city in the world, it is not easy. And we all know that Eli was very close to being run out of town before he hit the pinnacle in 2007 and then became our guy, so to speak. But I don't envy Daniel Jones right now. And I'll be honest, Gary, and I'll be honest, Giants Nation, I truly believe that this might be the end of the Daniel Jones era. And it's not all his fault. But I do believe that when you talk about regimes that come in and build football teams from the ground up, the combination of Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll were willing to give this an opportunity because there are certain metrics of the skill set that DJ did have to the former quarterback that Brian Daboll coached in superstar MVP candidate Josh Allen. And Daboll did a great job with DJ last year. The turnovers were cut down. DJ had a phenomenal playoff game before getting ousted by the eventual NFC champion Philadelphia Eagles. But I do think that things are getting to a point where when you're the head coach and things aren't working, you have to start, cutting the fat out and then making replacements before the light starts beaming on you. And I think in Brian Daboll's case, the special teams guy has to be under scrutiny. Your offensive line coach has to be under scrutiny. And yes, I love Wink Martindale, and I have a world of respect for him. but his guys as a unit are not performing consistently. To be honest with you, Gary, Tua Tagovailoa made some mistakes that were unforced. That touchdown by Jason Pinnock to the house was a Christmas gift, literally, wrapped up and sealed and taken home. The Giants cannot score right now. The Giants cannot tackle right now. And when you're getting incinerated in your secondary for over 500 yards of total offense, it's a big issue. And quite frankly, as my man Sash Jansen would say, that's not Giants pride. Philadelphia Eagles fly high in SoFi. This is an Eagles team that every week, not necessarily pretty, but this is a team that has figured out how to consistently close out games and win. Early in the year, it was a little bit of a concern of mine, allowing lesser talented teams or just teams that they are better than or better coached than to come back. We saw examples of that against the Patriots, against the Vikings. The Rams, I think Sean McVay is doing a very good job with them considering the injuries that they have had to deal with and a lot of changing faces and being in a bit of a transition. The Rams are not an easy out right now for anybody to beat. But the Philadelphia Eagles, they're actually surprising me because I did think that they were going to lose a little more than they have and what they had last year, which was being excellent during the course of the year and coming so close to winning their second Super Bowl. But right now, the Philadelphia Eagles are winning, and the only stat that matters in this league is consistently winning. You got to give props to Nick Sirianni and co. They are doing their thing right now. And with the issues in Dallas, a 2-game lead in this division is massive. Yeah, Gary, I love it. And I agree with you, bud. I'm a big window thinker when it comes to how I view things. But right now, we're not good, and we have to think about the future. And there's a kid named Drake May that plays in UNC that I have some interest in. As the Eagles go, as long as their offensive line continues to keep Jalen Hurts upright, and as long as their committee backfield works to the level that it does, they are a very difficult team to beat because they take care of the football for the most part. We've seen a few issues with Jalen Hurts taking some chances that maybe he shouldn't take. But right now, when you combine that with an aggressive defense and with the way that they're getting things done, the Eagles look every bit of a team that may very well repeat as NFC champions. I think the 49ers have something to say about that. I think the 49ers are very thirsty for a rematch and for the emotional, ride of just getting wrecked in Philly and not even having a quarterback that could play. It was pretty wild. That led to a rule change in the league. But right now the Phillies are on it. The Eagles are on it. They're looking good. They're looking good right now. And they have a lot of confidence. I would have to say that, in my opinion, the biggest surprise of this week, maybe with the exception of what went down in England, was the Chicago Bears losing the legendary linebacker Dick Butkus, truly one of the true icons of the NFL. You cannot tell the story of the National Football League without mentioning this man. He passed away not long before kickoff. And they were playing a Washington Commander team that's actually has improved and is looking like a team that has an identity, and they're gaining one and they're going places right now. And for the Bears coming off of going into the last couple of weeks, a lot of offensive inadequacies, the question marks surrounding their quarterback, Justin Fields, I believe that this was a huge statement game, and the power of suggestion is a real thing. And I think that this Bears team brought it together and played at a very emotional level on the road to honor their fallen legend. My condolences sincerely to the Butkus family. And it's sad when you lose people like that, because people like that were from an era of truly just a golden time in this wonderful league. And the man was an icon. There is no denying that. You can't talk about the Chicago Bears without him being one of your top 3 or 4 guys you're going to mention, along with a guy like a Mike Singletary, along with the great late Walter Payton, a.k.a. Sweetness. You have other guys like Richard Dent, The fridge was iconic in his own way because he brought a different flavor to the game. Jim McMahon, not the greatest quarterback, but one of the greatest personalities. The Bears have such a rich, rich history, and this man is at the forefront of that. To the fantasy heads, Justin Fields has been kind of blowing up lately, and he may continue to do that. And, we're going to flip it from the Bears finally getting a win to this is just weird on all kinds of metrics. The Lions keep winning. They really have a win in Arrowhead. They have a win in Lambeau, doing things that you don't expect the Lions to do. And quite frankly, it's not the same old Lions. Dan Campbell has this team playing at a very high level, and you got to give credit where it's due because they were missing some weapons going into this game. This is a game that had trap game written all over it. And to the credit of the coaching staff, they did not allow their team to fall asleep here and give a winless Carolina team a chance at a win. They put up a lot of points. Amon-Ra St. Brown not available, no problem. Josh Reynolds had a very big game, and I didn't see that coming, even though I had no choice to start him in fantasy because of his groin issue. He showed out. This is a team that's truly believing in what Dan Campbell is selling. And as far as I'm concerned, in the early going, there is a distinct possibility that Dan Campbell will be a candidate for Coach of the Year. I also believe that depending on if the Houston Texans win the South or if they get close to that goal, a winning record, I think DeMeco Ryans may very well be in the conversation for that elusive Coach of the Year award. And speaking of DeMeco, his Texans came up small, just short in the ATL. I was wrong about this game. I expected the Texans to walk away with a win. And they missed a few opportunities that could have led to a victory. I'm going to say this. I think the Falcons have a pretty record, but I'm still not buying them completely. And while the Houston Texans have a worse record than the Falcons after this, dropping to 2-3, I have a little more faith in the Texans still. I have more faith in their quarterback than I do for the quarterback for Atlanta, talking about Desmond Ridder in Atlanta, talking about C.J. Stroud in Houston. I like what DeMeco Ryans is building here. I think it's an extension of what Lovie Smith tried to hold this team to. We've said it on previous shows. Lovie was not in an easy situation, essentially what I felt like almost being like a gatekeeper and just waiting. A gatekeeper is the wrong word. A stopgap's a better word. Waiting to just get fired. He got an opportunity, but it wasn't really fair to him, but he did have this team punching hard and competing with much superior talent last year. And now you enter CJ Stroud, who every week, even when he makes mistakes, is getting invaluable experience. And you look at a very aggressive defense that's taken on the identity of a very great coach who did wonders in San Francisco, and now it's his own show in Houston. This is a team on the come up. Both these teams are in a healthy position. But I believe that the Houston Texans, even though they did come up short, are the better team, and the better team doesn't always win. I still believe the Tampa Bay Bucks are the team to beat in this South Division, and I think they will win this division for another year. We shall see how it plays out. A little surprised here with the Monday Night Football result as the Las Vegas Raiders got a much-needed win over the Packers. Raiders defense stepped up at some critical times of the game, and Max Crosby, definitely the pride of that team, the pride of the Raiders. It's kind of interesting, Devontae Adams, all the negativity going into this week, him questioning the culture. And I guess to Raider fans, some of them are possibly hoping for optimism. Is this something to get stoked about? I mean, you always are happy when your team wins. But I'm going to keep it real, guys. I think it's an anomaly. I don't think this Raiders team is that good despite winning. As the Green Bay Packers go, it's going to be a topsy-turvy kind of year. You don't replace a legend like Aaron Rodgers and don't have ups and downs. I think highly of Jordan Love. I think that he's doing a very good job considering that this is a team that has also been challenged with injuries. Coach Matt LaFleur is a very good one, and I like what they're cultivating in Green Bay right now. But I believe that they're not going to have sustained success for a playoff run this year. But similar to what I just said about Stroud and Houston, it's invaluable experience that's going to be huge in years to come. Right now, it goes without saying the Lions are the class of this division. It's not really debatable right now. And from a talent-based standpoint on offense, I think the Minnesota Vikings, although they're on the bottom with a 1-4 record, are the second most talented offense. It's just that things have not gone their way, and a lot of that speaks on the other side of the ball, which was exploited in the playoff game against my team. And on that, the Chiefs drive them into a 1-4 hole. Two questions come from this. Are the Chiefs truly the powerhouse they've been? Can the Vikings recover in a very winnable NFC North? Winnable if they start winning games is what I mean by that. The Lions will win this division. I think if the Vikings get their act together, they can potentially sneak into the wild card picture because it is a long season. But there are definitely some question marks regarding the future and the direction of this Minnesota Vikings team. Kirk Cousins is not a spring chicken, but he is definitely a quarterback that is capable of winning if you give him what he needs around him. What the Vikings don't have is the defense that can truly take them to a different level. I do think that the defense showed some effort in this game. They kept it close. And the Chiefs have been a tough team to figure out because when you consistently win in this league, sometimes I think as fans, or we take it for granted because you just expect Kansas City to always be there. They've had their own share of challenges. You go back to last year, losing a superstar like a Tyreek Hill. You go back to losing Juju Smith-Schuster, who, while he might not be a huge impact on a New England Patriots team that doesn't have a lot of talent, he was massive for what the Chiefs do. But, at the end of the day, Andy Reid is a phenomenal head coach, and they have a terrific drive to win. As a viewer, as an observer, and as somebody who likes fairness, I will admit this. I think in a lot of Kansas City Chiefs games, they get the benefit of a lot of 50-50 calls. I'm going to call it like I see it. I don't like it. Quite frankly, I think it's bogus. And I understand that in the NBA, superstars get the whistles. It goes without saying. And you pick your hero of any era in the NBA, and that holds true. But I do believe in a lot of 50-50 games, the Chiefs do get the benefit of some egregious calls that I think don't sit well with NFL fans. And then you factor in the Swiftie movement. And then you factor in the Brittany Mahomes thing. And, it's like they're in a weird way, they're becoming, unless if you're a fan of this team, they're becoming like hated on the level that the New England Patriots had for so many years, being like the evil empire, so to speak. And I do believe to a level that the Kansas City Chiefs are starting to become that on some metrics amongst NFL fans. But the one thing I will say is while they have certainly not made it look easy and look pretty, a win is a win is a win in this league. And I don't think the Chiefs necessarily have to be the best right now. It is, getting through the season, getting to the playoffs as healthy as you could be, being able to win big games potentially on the road, maybe at home. But as of right now, I don't think we've seen the best or the worst that the Chiefs have to offer. I think it's going to be a little topsy-turvy because of the fact that if we really are honest, they don't necessarily have the talent that they've had in previous years. But it also doesn't mean that it can't be cultivated because they have a lot of new faces. And we saw it with Aaron Rodgers last year in Green Bay when he struggled with a lot of young players. Patrick Mahomes doesn't always have the best connections with the likes of a Sky Moore, with the likes of a Kadarius Toney. Travis Kelce is the ultimate tight end, and he is his security blanket in the offense when things aren't going well. And I do believe that the combination of Isaiah Pacheco, who is the power rusher, as well as a guy who's super reliable with the hands as a Jerick McKinnon, are good things to have in an offense when sometimes it's stymies or you make mistakes. It's a 60-minute battle. It's never like a clear path to a victory. But the Kansas City Chiefs win a hell of a lot more than they lose. And I'm supposed to believe that they're going to be there when it counts because that's what they do. Broncos can't hack it. Undermanned Jets get much-needed win in Mile High statement game. Why is this a statement game when both these teams don't have pretty records? I'm going to explain. Going into the season, A lot of controversy coming from head coach Sean Payton of the Broncos getting on to Nathaniel Hackett, former coach of the Denver Broncos, saying that he has no place in the league, that basically like he's an idiot and he just doesn't know what he's doing. And in a fraternity of head coaches, that was a bad look on a lot of levels. Aaron Rodgers, the injured Jet quarterback who is healing right now, came to the aid of his very good friend and, his coach, Hackett, who runs the offense. And it got kind of personal. And Peyton did retract and apologize, but, words are words. Ask Evan Neal what the power of words do. More importantly than feelings, the Jets needed a damn win, and they got that. And as a Giants fan, one thing that I will admit, the main difference between the New York Giants and the New York Jets right now is that I think the New York Jets are truly, truly trying their best. Whereas with the Giants, my frustration is I feel that certain players, I wouldn't say checked out, but they're not hearing the message, so to speak. Head coach Robert Saleh is a fighter. I've got to give him that. And when you come off that emotional defeat, against the Kansas City Chiefs, and I alluded to the Chiefs getting all the 50-50 calls, those are the kind of things that sometimes can break a team apart if you're on the losing end of it. And I think it has actually given the Jets some fuel, no pun intended. But the Jets have legitimately played hard every week. It hasn't always looked pretty, and Zach Wilson is most definitely a project quarterback right now, and not one that they expected to be thrust in this position. That's why they won out there and made the trade for the 4-time league MVP, one-time Super Bowl winner, Mr. Aaron Rodgers. And Aaron Rodgers is going to do everything in his power to get back this season. Quite frankly, I don't think that matters because this team should not be in the playoffs. But I do think going into next year and retaining their first-round pick, because Rodgers didn't play the necessary amount of snaps for the Packers to get that pick, I think the Jets are in a big window situation, not in a bad place. But it's right now, I think it's about staying the course, believing in themselves, and just believing in their program, because it's not always about just one season. Jammed cannons. Patriots get blanked in the Burrow. This has to be incredibly disheartening for Patriot fans, an organization that has just become so accustomed to winning, being the greatest dynasty over the course of a 20-year span. 6 Lombardi trophies, arguably the greatest quarterback in NFL history at the helm for so long, and Mr. Tom Brady recently retired. And now you have Mac Jones, a guy that, once again, similar to Daniel Jones, similar to Zach Wilson, a project quarterback, and it's a mixed bag. I've said it on previous shows, New England desperately needs a number 1 wide receiver, but they also need health. Losing Christian Gonzalez, losing Matthew Judon. I like that they brought back J.C. Jackson. It's a player that I think that they should have never let leave the building. But the Patriots are going through it on the injury side of things. And I also believe that, to Mike Zappi's point, he has said this on many a show, they might be at a crossroads too. Is it time for Bill to hang it up? I think that's a legitimate question that needs to be asked. Do they have the right guy to replace him at head coach? Is it his son? Is it their current OC, Bill O'Brien? I'm not sure. I don't know what direction the Patriots got to go in right now. But one thing I do know is that they need a number 1 receiver. They need to get healthy. And there's a good possibility they need to upgrade the quarterback position, because I'm not a Mac Jones hater, but I do question if he's got what it takes. Similar to my own guy, Daniel Jones. I'm not sure anymore right now. But this is a very talented quarterback class coming out. And I think the Patriots can take advantage of that because they will be picking high. AFC South, and my word of mouth, this division is truly anybody's to win, but who will? I'm not sure. I did pick the Tennessee Titans going in. I think each team at different junctures has shown the ability that they could be the best team in this division, but it's been a mixed bag all the way down, up and down, 1 through 4. I would say that one of the most encouraging things from this division that was shown this week is undeniably the fact that it goes without saying that the Jacksonville Jaguars got the win in England. Indy, Tennessee, to no one's surprise, usually always a very tight game. Indy right now has their young franchise quarterback, AR-15, injured yet again. But they have a nice little blessing in the fact that Gardner Minshew, has experience in this league, and he can come in and win football games. He has done it in Jacksonville. He did it last year in a showdown against the Cowboys as a member of the Philadelphia Eagles. These are things that could happen. But right now, it's just kind of hard to forecast who's in the driver's seat. But through 5 weeks at the moment, I'll say it's the Jaguars. Next week, it could be different. Engel's TED Talk has positive effect. Why the Steelers always keep Lamar in check. I'm going to start with the Steelers. On defense, I believe that over the course of a lot of years, they forced Lamar Jackson into messing up his body clock, messing up his timing, messing up his ability to stay in the pocket, to make the best decisions. And, it comes with familiarity, and it also comes with the fact that no matter what the Steelers are doing on offense, they always bring a really special defense to the field, even in years where they struggle. I think the Baltimore Ravens are a well-coached football team in their own right. They were winning for a good portion of this game, and it's a game that came down to one score, like many Steeler-Raven games do. And I believe that Baltimore is weathering a ton of injuries right now, and it is not easy. But I do have a high faith in both these coaches, and in my opinion, future Hall of Fame coaches, in Harbaugh as well as Coach Mike Tomlin. And this is another division, once again, where it is tough to assess who is truly the best team in this division. And oddly enough, after quite the slumber of September, it looks like the Cincinnati Bengals are starting to assert themselves, that maybe, just maybe, Joe Burrow's feeling a little better, and they are starting to get it going, because the TED Talk I'm referring to is Jamar Chase calling out some teammates, having some, according to the media, some issues with head coach Zach Taylor. And Zach Taylor basically is promoting Chase to speak his mind and get on his teammates and demand excellence. And Jamar Chase responds with a blow-up game. My fantasy team reaped the benefits of the kind of game that he had. And the Cincinnati Bengals right now are looking like a team that wants to join the party. They were expected to be a Super Bowl contender, and right now they are starting to look the part a little bit. And granted, they beat the Arizona Cardinals, but this is a Cardinals team that had a 20-point lead on the Giants. This is a Cardinals team that beat the Cowboys. This is a Cardinals team that has competed pretty much every week they've been on the field, so it is a win that they should feel good about. Jet lag, sleepwalking, and maybe fatigue. While the Bills' inconsistencies have many intrigued. Good friend of the show, Zay Fetty, Zay Rodriguez, Bills fan. I told him the other day when I saw him, I said, I wouldn't take too much out of losing this game. When you're playing a team that had the benefit of being in England for 2 consecutive weeks, it is a competitive disadvantage no matter what the Bills did the previous week. And what they did was beat the ever-living shit out of the Miami Dolphins. But the Bills were sloppy. There's no doubt about it. And there were just too many junctures, excuse me, of this game where the Bills did not match the Jaguars' intensity. Buffalo has a hell of a team. Josh Allen, after that terrible week 1, has really put together a lot of quality football games. There were some unforced errors in this game that cost Buffalo the win. I think Buffalo is a premier team, a little better than I expected them to be, because I myself questioned if the window is closing. No, I don't believe the window is closing. I think the Buffalo Bills have just as good a chance as anybody to represent that conference right now. And with the win over Miami, it's huge, because at the end of the season, the final game of the year is in Miami, and that could decide, a lot for playoff implications. I'll give you an example, like my fantasy team, for instance. I currently have Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes on my roster. If somebody would have asked me 2-3 weeks ago, who am I getting rid of? I would have said, maybe I'll trade Allen. Right now, I'm not sure. I think I'm going to trade Mahomes, because I think that Josh Allen just has a better ceiling in terms of the way he rushes the football. He's always a threat on the ground to get the cheap touchdowns inside the 5, not to mention that he's a stat machine. And if Josh Allen keeps the interceptions to a tolerable minimum, he is such a factor. And, healthy Von Miller, a defense gradually coming together, I think this Bills team is very dangerous. And you incorporate the 1-2 punch of James Cook and Latavius Murray, and this is a team that could be very viable and very valid and very real come playoff time. I know that last year, the way their season ended was not the way they wanted to. And I think Buffalo was going through something bigger than, trying to chase a Super Bowl when your teammate, your brother, Damar Hamlin, almost loses his life on the football field, then makes a very inspirational recovery. It's got to be emotionally draining for any team. Not to mention that just the football end of things. You dealt with a lot of injuries. And last year, Cincinnati's receivers undressed Buffalo, and they won with relative ease in Buffalo, in front of their home faithful. But I think the Bills just needed to kind of recover, get through a very emotionally draining year. And right now, thank God, DeMar's okay. And it looks like this Bills team, after some controversy coming in with Steph Diggs and Josh Allen, I think that they're coming together. And, it takes so many variables that we don't always speak on to build a winner. And, similar to what's going on in Dallas, with it has to be their time now and XYZ, I do believe that in Buffalo, Sean McDermott is also under an immense amount of pressure to make sure that his Bills finally get to that next level, because the talent has always been there. And, this is an organization, a franchise that has been thirsting for a Super Bowl title. They are the only team in NFL history to go to 4 consecutive Super Bowls. They did that in the 90s with the great Jim Kelly, the great Thurman Thomas, the great Bruce Smith. And unfortunately, they lost all 4 of those Super Bowls. And, my New York Giants beat them by a point in one of the most iconic Super Bowls of all time. And then they lost to the former Redskins, and then they lost to the Cowboys twice, and just utter heartbreak. But the first one kind of set the tone, because that 1990 Bills team, in my opinion, is the greatest Buffalo Bills team of all time. My final thought, it's about the officials. I understand that this is a game where we have to take the neurological level very serious when it comes to CTE. But having said that, I also think there has to be a happy medium of policing these calls a little better. What I saw happen in London when Josh Allen of the Jaguars put Josh Allen of the Bills on the deck in what I felt was a clean play, I don't think it's fair for defenders to always get hit with some of these head-to-head penalties when, the helmets collide, sometimes through circumstantial stuff, because I don't think it's fair. I think when you're trying to tackle a person, if I was told at a very young age that if you're playing this game not to get hurt or not hurt someone, you're probably going to get hurt. And I don't think that they value that. Yeah, defenders have a brain in their heads too, and sometimes they take the brunt of these hits. And I understand that you got to protect the quarterbacks. It is a quarterback-driven league, and I get all that. But there has to be a happy medium on what is reckless and what isn't when it comes to the way that some of these penalties get thrown, because quite frankly, it's becoming the no-fun league when they do that. That's all I got for today, folks. If you haven't already, please make it a point to please like and subscribe to the channel, the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast on YouTube. We've got some new ideas cooking, details to follow. I greatly appreciate you guys taking a little bit out of your Tuesday and hanging with me. Have a great rest of your day, folks. And we will be coming more than likely tomorrow evening with our Week 6 NFL preview, predictions, and analysis show. I will have some company with me for that one. We out.